Welcome to the Home Business Podcast with Richard Captain Henderson, publisher of Home Business Magazine, and Sherilyn Colleen, managing editor. This how-to show helps you successfully operate your home-based business.
Greetings and welcome to the Home Business Podcast. I'm Richard Captain Henderson, your skipper at Home Business TV. Let's secure, foresee, and get underway. According to today's guest, for the 100 million Americans who want to be self-employed, the pandemic has created a unique opportunity. There is a huge increase in demand for service-based businesses, which are a major sector of the home-based business economy. The ongoing pandemic has also led to the shuttering of businesses and the creation of new opportunities. Trey Williams, a nationally recognized expert on entrepreneurship and author of Boss Brain, says that now is the best time to launch your own business. So greetings, Trey Williams. Say hello to the Home Business Podcast. How you doing?
I'm doing really
well.
Augustine,
Florida.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks. Let's see a copy of, I think it's in the background there, Boss Brain.
This is the official first advanced reader copy that I
All
have
right.
here. The remainder of them are sitting on a platform ready to be shipped on October 5th.
Thanks. So hopefully it looks like the hurricane missed you, but it's always nice in Florida. I had a chance to get down there in the Navy to Jacksonville, close by. So, so come to think about it, Florida is an entrepreneurial hub. I think when I'm looking at databases and things like that, there's always like a huge portion are Florida zip codes. So I think they have like they're put something in the water to increase entrepreneurship down there.
Well, it's certainly a business-friendly environment. Florida is the fastest growing state in the union. About 1,000 people a day are moving to Florida. That's a real number. It used to be pre-pandemic around 750 or 800 people a day, which was nothing to sneeze at. Now it's closer to 1,000 a day, and we're the third most populous state. And from a business perspective, there's a lot of great reasons to start a business in Florida. So I can't blame folks who are wanting to get down here.
It's a business powerhouse and also a home-based business powerhouse. I assume you do a lot of work from home too, like the rest of us. So thanks again for joining us today. Well, let's get to know you a little bit better. How did you come up with this cool name, Boss Brain, for your book?
So the word entrepreneur actually comes from a Sanskrit word meaning inner calling. And that word means a lot to me personally, and I think to every other entrepreneur out there, home-based or not, because they feel very driven to be the master of their own fate and to take control of their own future and their destiny and building their personal legacy. And those feelings, that inner calling, really kind of smolders beneath everything that society is telling you. Society is telling you to go to school, get a job, get 26 paychecks a year, have 14 days of vacation, find what I like to call in the book predictable adequacy. But even if you follow that path, there's always this inner calling smoldering beneath that more present version of what society is telling you to think and act. So your boss brain is really kind of those primal instincts. It's that inner calling that you felt deep down inside that said, hey, I am capable of more than what I'm being asked to do, and I want to take control and be the master of my own fate.
So this is kind of a cool concept. I've thought I've seen every angle, but this is a new one. You're saying that there's an inner like brain wiring almost that's inside of everybody, kind of waiting to get touched to a drive to be an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. So this instinct was hardwired into us by Mother Nature millennia ago. There are always those who have this optimistic vision of the future, and they seek to build that legacy somewhere, and they want to make that happen. And this is in no way meant to vilify people who are W-2 employees. It was important for us to have both of those. We needed for folks to want to stay behind while someone else sailed beyond the horizon, right? This was an important balance for us as a species. But what's happened in the Western world right now is predictable adequacy is so available to all of us that it's really tipped the scales and caused a significant decline in entrepreneurship. In fact, entrepreneurship is at its lowest levels in American history.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it should be at a higher level with, it's easier now to become an entrepreneur, but that's a good way of looking at it. There are just so many structures out there that get you kind of programmed into it. And you're not really paying attention to that boss brain.
That's true.
That's
Yeah.
you know, goes back to the days of coming out of a cave and needing to hunt. There's like a primal desire. I kind of like that that take on things. But how has this pandemic, is shaken up everything? How has it impacted entrepreneurship across America, and revealing that traditional employment is not synonymous with stability?
Absolutely. So really the pandemic has revealed traditional employment to be a bit of a house of cards. The predictability and the stability of it is predicated on variables that are 100% outside of your control. And I think a lot of folks who felt that inner calling to be an entrepreneur had yet to take action on that, really found this to confirm what they've always felt. In fact, I know that to be the case because in 2020, a record number of businesses were started compared to the last decade. But it's important to note, Richard, that even though that was a record number of businesses, it was but a tiny fraction of what we have lost over the past 5 to 6 decades. America now ranks among the lowest in the world for self-employment, below dictatorship Russia, below communist China, below democratic socialist Norway. 25 years ago, entrepreneurship, self-employment was around 12 or 13% in America. Now it is less than 7%. So it's been cut in half. And on this trajectory, we'll have 99% of Americans working for the other 1% by the mid 2040s.
Has some of this been caused by the consolidations in industries that have consolidated, the buyouts? Has that, I'm trying to dig into what are some of these factors that have increased.
Well, I'm confident that consolidation has created mega growth among large corporations.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is that startups is what I'm talking about. Startups have declined every year since the mid 1940s. So in 2006, more businesses closed than opened in any time in American history. That's the first time that ever happened. Mm-hmm. It's important to note that in 2006, the economy was banging. We were doing very, very well. And that's the point. We're victims of our own success. When things are going extraordinarily well,
you get comfortable.
We're less likely. Exactly.
Right.
In the Western world, provides a lot of stability. Yep.
Head into work 40 hours a week and not have to worry about the charting your own course. Well, let's dig in a little bit with that boss brain. How did the pandemic, increase the opportunities for getting that boss brain wired in and starting up specifically a service-based business?
Well, so you had 300 million people stuck at their home for a period of time. Then you had them stuck within their regional, local area, their neighborhood. Now you have them accustomed to traveling shorter and shorter amount of distances. And this has just blown the services industry wide open. We're seeing it happen in real time within the real estate industry. I predicted a year ago that the real estate industry was going to tank. It's done the opposite of that. I could not have been more wrong.
I think that's because the prices are going up so wackily, right? We're in a boom right now on real estate prices and interest rates that are just artificially low.
Absolutely for that. But as a result, you see moving businesses, cleaning businesses, remodeling businesses, home surveys, all these types of service-based businesses where people working from their home are able to tap into what's happening in the real estate market. It's not like these businesses aren't around at times when we aren't in the boom we are. Just right now, they're particularly important. And the folks I know who are in those businesses right now are 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks out. Try getting a home survey or a home inspection done in 2-week period. You're just not going to have it happen. So for those of you who want to have a home-based business, the real estate industry is really affording you an amazing opportunity right now to tap into enormous amounts of pent-up demand.
So just across the board, any kind of, just a broad, diversified base of services, there's just there's an increased demand. And from what you're seeing, and I've seen that too, there's a lack of providers.
Absolutely, there's a lack of providers, and the providers that do exist have a lack of employees to help them with that business. We've got an unprecedented number of available jobs available in America right now. Hard and maybe difficult to explain why we still have any level of unemployment when there's literally millions of jobs available in America right now. But that's creating opportunity for would-be entrepreneurs to seize this moment and to fill that pent-up demand. And as we all know, as demand goes up, so do prices. So
yeah, they can fulfill that demand without going to work for somebody else, but starting their 100%. Own businesses.
100%.
So let's move into this a little bit more. Like there are riches in niches. You have to pick the right niche. Trey, what are some of the better industries for launching a new business? We talked a little bit about real estate. What are some of the other ones that you think are particularly promising?
So outside of real estate right now, which is enormous, I see everything localizing that is a permanent aspect of your life. So we're always going to eat. We're always going to need shelter. We're always going to need education. We're always going to need entertainment. These are just part of our lifestyle and the fabric of American society. So despite what you may think what's happening within the hospitality industry, which took a serious hit last year, it took a hit because it was built on that same house of cards that the predictable employment was built on. People haven't stopped eating. Everyone still eats 3 times a day. So what I'm seeing in the food and beverage industry is this amazing version of localization where chefs have started in-home cooking catering, where they come to your house and actually cook, or where businesses that did have a fixed overhead and a 200-seat restaurant have gone to takeout only. And the evolution of this is just part of us dealing with the pandemic. And people are always going to eat. Another one of these is education, where I'm seeing teachers who made $40,000 last year start their own business, take on 10 to 12 students in a home-based environment, make 3 or 4 times what they made as a teacher working privately, teaching children at home as homeschooling, which a lot of people have opted for safety reasons, but it also has created an enormous opportunity in the education world.
So, I mean, there's a ton of industries we can talk about. You hit some of the better ones, but I think a key aspect of it is you use that good term localized. And as, these new service opportunities, manifest themselves, I think, there's an increase in what can be done home-based. And like you mentioned about the chef, and you may be able to work it out of their kitchen, and in other words, a lot of these opportunities are more home based than having to open up a storefront.
Yep, there's a reason why you couldn't buy home-based fitness equipment for about 8 months last year. Everyone stopped going to the gym, but guess what's happening, Richard? Now everyone says, I kind of prefer to work out in my garage now.
So funny you mentioned that, because I held on doing it. I went to look for some gym equipment, and forget it. It was all sold out. Then I went back to my gym, and like half my buddies and stuff, they weren't there. And I just, so-and-so decided to continue working out from home.
Absolutely.
That kind of shows the adaptive aspect. I'm just one of those persons. I've got to get out of the house to work out. But a lot of people end up doing things home-based they never thought they would. And that's funny you mentioned the one about, home gyms and all.
Yep. I know a person who owned a gym equipment store where he sold the equipment, and he immediately pivoted to becoming a rental for folks who maybe couldn't afford a $1,000 rack worth of weights and equipment and bars, but they could afford to rent it for $89 or $99 a month. So he immediately pivoted. His revenue went through the roof, and he still owns that equipment that folks are renting from him that he can then, down the road resell when someone wants to buy used equipment. It was a fantastic pivot on his part. He works from home now, by the way. He got rid of his space where he housed all that equipment and is drop shipping direct to those who want the equipment and just acting as a middleman. It's a fantastic.
All right. So did he discover his boss brain?
He was a pretty strong entrepreneur to begin with. He was always the kind of guy that wanted to be the master of his own fate. And I think there are a lot of those folks out there who feel that inner calling, and the pandemic has given them an opportunity to seize, but also the revelation that there's a real motivation to do so right now.
Let's dig into this, the pandemic a little bit more. What are some of the issues within the pandemic that can be used to your opportunity, like finding great deals through businesses that are, forced to shutter, but that market demand is still there?
Absolutely. So I know that home-based businesses are exploding, but let's not forget that unfortunately, a lot of brick and mortar locations did close, and a lot of those spaces already have pre-existing HVAC, pre-existing infrastructure, sometimes equipment, sometimes furniture, and these leasehold improvements were all part of the original business model for someone else. And as a result, if you need that space outside of your home, then you've got a real opportunity to step into something with a very low investment of capital rather than having to leverage hundreds of thousands of dollars before you even get started.
Yeah, I want to bring out a key point on that, maybe it is an outside retail location, but those are still married up with a home-based aspect, because your home office will be at home. You're doing admin work and planning. You're still working from your home office. It's still a home-based business, but you may go to a storefront during the day. So we like to be a big tent.
Well, no, you described me perfectly. I own businesses that have retail locations where we execute the business model, but I'm sitting at the very desk where I run that business.
Right.
So this is my home-based business.
Yeah. So I know a few people in like my downtown that, have retail locations, and I think they do more work out of their home office, and they get to the point where it's more successful and they have employees working. They just might, the old model where you used to have a little office at the storefront, that's just migrated to the home office.
Sure. So, this is the only place I feel like I get anything done.
Yeah, you're not going to get anything done at the storefront.
Yeah. No doubt.
This is too much to talk about on this podcast, but service is a big, broad sector. What do you have any, success advice for getting started up specifically in a service type of business? Like any kind of specific startup advice that you think is good?
Absolutely. So I think it's important right now to localize and grow concentrically. And I can't say this enough, is look within your own neighborhood, look within your own community, look within your own city, look within your own county. A lot of folks sometimes feel like they have to create a business, throw it online, and start selling or providing services all over the nation. And I'm not saying that you can't do it that way. You can, but a safer pathway in the uncertain times that we're in right now is to allow your overhead and your obligations to grow incrementally as you grow concentrically, so that you're within your realm and your ability to service. So there's everywhere that you live, there are needs. All around you, there are services that need to be provided. So look, local first is my most important advice right now.
Yeah, that's important to bring that out, because a lot of people get into home-based, and it, like it's more of a national thing, e-commerce, mail order, going way back, things like that. But if you are going to shift to more of a really specific service, you've got to you got to pull in the tent stakes a little bit and look, more locally. And also, that's a good point. It's also a kind, it's always risk. What risk are you taking? And the more you try to expand the larger territory, the more risk you're going to bring you.
I live in a neighborhood in Florida with 2,600 homes in it. And if you think about that, that's 2,600 potential customers for a variety of services that I'm right up the street from and able to service and really build on that trust that I can begin with them. So there's nothing wrong with building locally and growing concentrically and taking measured risk along the way. And it really allows you at the point when we can put all of this behind you to sort of have a higher trajectory of growth, because you build on that easy or that stronger
something
foundation.
To bring out, and I noticed is I think people will spend a little bit more money if they're dealing with somebody locally, as opposed to maybe it won't be a service, but I had an example where I needed to buy some posters, and the local price was 3 times what some job shopper that probably did it overseas and brought it back. But we went with the local, and the local provider. And I think that would carry out if you build those local relationships. You're out of Facebook. They see you personally. I think that you can work that to your advantage when starting up a service business.
That's how America was built, Richard. Yeah. It was built locally, right?
Prior to 1995. With no smartphones.
Prior to 1995, but prior to the internet, there was always who is the best at this in this community. And that person didn't have to measure themselves against every other version of that particular industry around the world, via social media or otherwise.
Right.
So everyone went to what was local. And that really is what kept wages growing through the entire first century and a half of America. It's that decentralization of services that caused wages to stagnate. And there's an important economic lesson in there that we'll never cover in this podcast.
Right.
But buy local and focus on local, and you'll have a stronger community.
Right. Yeah. I mean, grow from the middle out. So, just like real estate, location matters. Every place is a good place to start up a business. We talked a little bit about Florida, but what are just some of the better places in the U.S. to start a business venture for a service type business? Maybe it's not a specific location you can recommend, but more of a demographic or, rural versus urban. Is there any place in particular that are good for specific types of service businesses?
Yeah, well, Florida is the fastest growing, but right behind that are Tennessee and Texas. And Tennessee and Texas are the number three and number two. Texas is the second fastest behind Florida and growing. And every one of these people moving into those states with not insignificant populations require the same startup services, the same establishing services that anybody does when they relocate, from education all the way up to dry goods, right? All of these things are going to be required. And they want them more and more delivered to their home. It's important to note also that within those two fastest growing states, at Tennessee and Texas, neither of them have state income tax. So by moving to those states, you immediately, if you come from a state that does have state income tax, you immediately get an increase in your personal income by virtue of not paying the state for that. So big fan of those two states right now. Obviously, my perspective is skewed on Florida, but I think I could make a strong argument. Florida is one of the best places in America to start a business right now.
But just looking at, just the audience in general, that, you should be able to find opportunity, whatever part of the state you're in. I think even urban, like everyone's, kind of moving out of urban areas. I from the data I've shown, there's still good entrepreneurial opportunity, within most urban areas.
Absolutely. So one of the things you're seeing right now is an uptick in recruitment in HR and temp services. Everyone needs employees so badly. The folks I know who own recruitment companies, I believe they describe it as trying to drink from a fire hose, because they are in enormous amount of demand. And it is particularly in urban areas, ironically enough, these places where there are millions of people and somehow they're unable to find employees. So recruitment services are going through the roof right now, as are temp services.
Yeah, maybe not something for this podcast, but maybe certain types of businesses, service oriented, are better for an urban environment where it's more business and people commuting in each day versus the rural area where it's more home-based, homeowners, and they need different types of services. So I guess maybe that's something to be sensitive to, looking at the demographics of where you're going in.
Yeah, certainly the volume and margin are inextricably linked, and there's going to be some businesses that need to be in a more densely populated area. But I'll just say this as we begin to close out: the two Japanese kanji that represent the word crisis, one of the kanji is chaos and the other kanji is opportunity. So in this chaos that we're in right now, there is enormous amount of opportunity. You just have to look for that opportunity and recognize that even though things are a little scary and you may be fearful, you live in a country that provides the greatest opportunities anywhere else in the world. And if you seize those opportunities, you'll be able to capitalize on them.
All right. Well, chaos equals boss brain. Trey Williams, it's been a great discussion on becoming your own boss in a service-based industry and unleashing your boss brain. Do you have any final points you would like to share?
I tell everybody as I sign off that belief is reverse engineered. If you don't believe that it's possible right now, you have to take action in some way, even if you don't believe. And by taking action, you begin to view yourself as someone who can achieve the things that you previously thought were impossible. So no matter what it is, even if you don't have faith, take action and get started.
You got to take some step to that entrepreneurial journey, one baby step off the couch. So well put. Thanks for being with us today on the Home Business Podcast.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, Richard.
To learn more about Trey Williams and his book, Boss Brain, please visit trawilliams.com or our podcast website for more information on guests. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Home Business Podcast. Share your feedback with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at our website, homebusinessmag.com. Visit the website for information on advertising. Subscribe to the newsletter. Read our book, The Home-Based Business Startup Guide. For more information, visit homebusinessmag.com or homebusinessexpo.com. I'm Richard Captain Henderson saying, anchors away. We'll talk with you soon. Until then, make it a great home-based biz day.